done this presentation I think once before for SECC folks, and was really well received. It was attended by mostly students, and so they have a greater understanding of a lot of the technology more than I do. But like I said, I started learning this out of necessity, and I'm getting better at it. And I find that it's not that hard as long as you plan, as long as you figure out ahead of time what you want to do. So let's talk about creating these news stories. It's easy to make a video with your phone. It's really simple. You just have to worry about where things are framed, how it looks, make sure that you're not backlit, all those things, and we'll get into that. But this is just a really simple video. So this is our School of Education doing a workshop. This is obviously pre-COVID, and I just wanted to do something to promote that we had over 100 teachers here who were going to get their administrative credential. This was the very first day. So I shot this little video, edited on my phone using iMovie, added some stock music, and it just kind of shows all the people there and what's going on. And I put it on Facebook, and I would say I had several hundred hits on this. And it was kind of surprising because I wasn't expecting it. But look how simple it is. It's just, it's not very, there's not very much to it. And seriously, it's just holding up a phone, following people around, trying to be smooth with it. And you'll find that with iPhone, iMovie, it's really simple. It's really simple to do. And there are other editing programs out there that you can use. And so for storytelling purposes, and this goes for your students and for you as well, your goal is just to keep the story simple. And think about what you can tell in a story in an engaging way and without it being too complicated. Make sure that your story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so when I go out and put together stories for my organization, I kind of think ahead of time as to what I want this to look like. So let's say you're going to an event of some sort. Maybe there's, let's just say it's the grand opening of the Culinary Cafe, and it's a CTE program. So I would think ahead of time, who do I want to help me tell the story? Because I produce stories where you don't need narration. I would rather have the people involved in the story telling the story. And so I might start off with interviewing the culinary instructor, and or maybe the principal of the school, and say, why are we here today? And I'll have him or her kind of say, well, we're here at the grand opening of the cafe. Tell me about the program. Ask open-ended questions so that you're not getting yes or no answers, and just let them provide the narrative to tell the story. And so for the story, I would talk to the culinary instructor, I'd talk to a couple of students, and perhaps a superintendent, just to string this story together. And so you've got the beginning where you've got the principal saying what this is all about. You've got the middle of the story explaining the program, whether it's to the instructor, the students, and perhaps the superintendent. And so when you're producing these stories, I think it's the Stephen Covey approach of begin with the ending in mind. So for this, it's how would you want the story to end? How do you want to end? So you want to end on something uplifting, something bright. So for the culinary school example, I would ask the principal, what is the best thing about this program and how does this help these kids? And so the principal might say something about how this gives them life skills, helps them prepare for the future. And that's a nice way to tail out and end that story. So, you know, as you prepare your students to go out and do these stories, you don't want them just kind of charging out and getting started. You want some pre-thought there. You want, you know, think of how are you going to begin it? What's your middle going to be like? How are you going to end it? And also think about what are the supporting video shots that you're going to use. So for the culinary example, you want the kids serving food, you want the kids making food, You want to show the kids in the middle of the program working. And so think of all that in mind. So, tell your students, think ahead of time. And if they can, talk to you ahead of time to explain what it is that you want them to do. So in planning your video, you want to think about the what. What is the story about? Get the facts right, before starting so that you know what the story is about. You don't want to go in cold. You don't want to go in not really knowing what's going on. And so why? Why is a story important to your audience? There has to be a reason for that. What is the why? So you want to tell them about a program. You want them to tell their story about maybe something that happened to them. You want them to profile a student athlete or an outstanding academic student. There are a number of ways. So in the pre-planning, you think about who, right? Who's involved in this? Who do I want to tell this story? Who can tell their sides of the story in an interesting way? So let's say that the students are profiling a teacher. Obviously, who they're going to talk to the teacher. They would talk to some students, and then perhaps an administrator to kind of tell that teacher's story. Maybe you're profiling the teacher of the year who might be on your campus. Think of the elements of, what is it about? Why are you doing it? Who would be involved in that? And then where? Where is the story happening, and where is it best to record? Obviously, if you're doing a story on the culinary cafe, you want to be in the kitchen. If you're doing a story on a teacher doing volunteer work or a student doing volunteer work, you want them out at the site to show what they're doing. And when, has the story already happened or is it happening? If it's happening at the time, then it's obviously a lot easier to tell that story. If it's already happened, then you have to kind of think of how can I tell this story that's already taken place? Are there photographs I can use? What kind of video can I use? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration as you're planning your story. The what, the why, the who, the where, and the when. It's all really simple, basic journalism. So more on planning your video is what's the subject of your story? You really want your students to go out there with a plan in mind. You don't want them randomly going out and thinking of something while they're out there. You really want to know what this is about before they even click record. Think first and then click. And that not only goes with your interview, but also with the shots that you're taking. Something to keep in mind when you're doing video on your iPhone is you want to minimize the shots you take. You want to make your shots good. So pre-plan them ahead of time. It's like, okay, I'm going to wait for that school bus to come toward me. So I'm going to get ahead of that school bus and wait, and it's going to come by. Okay, good. So think of that ahead of time. I want a picture of this student and these two students, walking through the quad. How do you want that to look? Get there ahead of time. So think about what you're doing before you actually take the shot. There are some times where spontaneously something's going to happen. You're going to record. That's fine. But for the most part, you really want to make sure ahead of time what your shots are and try to plan them out. Not so much as doing a storyboard, because that gets really complex. But think in your mind of what pictures am I going to need to tell this story? And then also think of variety of pictures. You want wide shots, medium shots, and tight shots. So let's say you're photographing a sequence of some sort. Let's say you've got a teacher who's going through a workbook and getting pages out to do homework packets. And again, that's not the best example, so I apologize for that. So you would get a wide shot of her doing the action. Then you would get a medium shot, same action. Then you would get a tight shot. You want a variety of shots because you don't want the same wide shot, wide shot, wide shot for your story, because that won't be very appealing to the people who are watching that story. Something to keep into consideration: are you going to use narration, or are you going to let the interviewees tell the story? Either way is fine. If you are using narration, you have to kind of have that script ready and know what shots you're going to need before you get out in the field. So tell your students that. Not that they have to have the story written ahead of time. It helps if they can, but just know what shots they're going to need. So if they're doing a story at a ball game, you know what shots you're going to need. If they're doing a story about them learning at home, what are the types of shots that they would need? And if if the interviewees are telling the story, like I mentioned earlier with that culinary example, think of who you want in the story to narrate that story for you. I prefer doing them that way because I don't have a lot of time to write scripts. So I plot ahead of time as to who I want to help me tell that story. So, the storytellers have to really make sense in the sequence of what you're using. So again, it all goes with pre-planning. When you're talking to someone, when your students are doing an interview, think ahead of time and say, okay, I want them to talk about this part of the program. Who best to tell that? I want to make sure I include that. So what do I need? Obviously, you need a smartphone. I don't know anything about Androids. All I know is the iPhone. So if you're an Android user, you might want to go somewhere else for help. I apologize. But I use exclusively the iPhone for that. And so, you've got your video program on there, and it's pretty simple. Press record. When you're using your iPhone, remember to tell your students a couple of things. Make sure it is not on slow-mo. Make sure it's not on time-lapse or portrait. Make sure it's on video. I've made the mistake of shooting some things in slow-mo that I've totally screwed up. And so I had to go back and do things over. So make sure you do that. What else do I need? I'm not going to say that you need adaptive lenses, but I use them because I think they make better pictures. I bought on Amazon a collection of add-on lenses, and I'll show you more in a second. There's telephoto and there's fisheye. I don't think you really need all that though, and I think the newer phones have better lenses. But I have this adaptive lens, this 120 lens, which opens the picture up just a little bit more, and it lets light in a little bit better. So to me, the picture looks much, much better when doing it that way. I use the lens almost exclusively because I just really like the picture. It makes it crisper, clearer. It's a little tiny bit wide, but it's not so bad. I bought this add-on that the lenses go in here, and you just screw them on, and then your phone goes through the back. And there's a little bracket here that's magnetic that helps hold this in place.
How much is something like that?
I will say that I've never spent more than maybe $25 for the add-on stuff, because I bought this for myself. I could have gotten through my organization, but if I want to do some personal things too, I didn't want to feel like I'm using the company's equipment. So I'm going to say this was, and Doug, what I'll do is I'll send you a link to everything that I bought, just to kind of give you an idea of how much I've spent. And again, you don't want to expect your students to spend a lot of money. You don't want them to, but there are some things I really think that they need. Do they really need the adaptive lens and all that? Not necessarily, but I think it'd be a nice have if you could. But it's not necessary.
Just taking a peek at some of the, I've looked at these before. Anywhere from $20 to $250 is just through one article, just a real quick look.
Yeah, and you know what? I would not recommend the $250. That's a lot of money, especially to expect kids to pay. and they would ask their parents, and you don't want to do that. I mean, you can get by with hardly anything. What I really would strongly urge is an external microphone. This one I bought on Amazon for 20 bucks. And Doug will attest to this, and you'll hear some of the audio on some of my stories in a little bit. The audio is really clear, right, Doug? For this tiny little mic?
Yeah, and it's the same one we're packaging out. This morning at 9, we're going to use some of our SEVA lab grant dollars, Tim, to so teachers can apply for accessories for their kids to use with their cell phones. And this microphone is one of those tools we're going to be putting out there, along with little LED light systems too. So that's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, these the only thing that I didn't like about this is I had to get the little adapter thing for the iPhone, because Apple changed, thank you very much, changed the connector, but that's okay. The downside to this is this way you cannot monitor the audio when you're recording. There is a splitter you can buy where you can monitor the audio while you're recording. I've never invested in it because I've never had a problem. But without an external microphone, your audio is going to be really hollow. And so let's say your student is interviewing somebody outside, and it's either windy, or there's traffic, or there's just a lot of external noise. The microphone that's already on the phone is fine for picking up ambient sound, but you don't want that for your interview because it's just not going to sound good. So you really want to make sure that bad audio doesn't ruin what you're trying to do. And when I started sending videos to Doug, he was really impressed with the sound of the audio, because I think that helps make the story. So you really, be careful with that. So use a tripod whenever you can. This is one that I bought through Amazon, and I will say I did splurge on this. This was $100. I wouldn't expect your students to do that, but you can get a pretty inexpensive tripod, Walmart or Target or something, for $25, $30. You don't really have to have it, but if your kids are doing an interview that's kind of long, after a while, the arm gets tired, and then you're holding the arm like this, and then it gets, it starts to affect your video. So you just put the phone in one of these little adapters, screw this onto the top of the tripod, put your phone in there, and you're locked in. So unless there's a major gust of wind, you're going to be pretty solid. So again, I'm not sure how much this is, Doug. I will send you the links to all the stuff that I purchased. This was not very expensive either, but it's really helpful.
Yeah, we're finding the mini tripods, the Gorilla Pods, they're all around 20 bucks, and
okay, good.
With those mounts, and we found one for like 23 that has an LED ring light that's optional you can attach to, so you can pump up your lighting too.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I have one external light. I don't know if I have it with me, that I can mount on a bracket. I didn't bring the bracket because my wife uses it at home. My wife's a teacher, and she's shooting little videos for her students, so she's borrowing some of my equipment. So what I would recommend, though, to me, I found this really important, is just this hand grip, just like a pistol grip or whatever you want to call it, because what I found was holding the camera like this for the longest time, just my hand would start to cramp. Maybe it's my age, I don't know. But this little pistol grip is so easy to use, and I'm sure you probably already have one. Some of the mini tripods kind of double as one of these. So it's just kind of nice because it's easy to flow with pictures, and you can follow people a lot easily. And to me, this was a great investment. If your students are going to keep their interviews short, then maybe they don't need the tripod. You just lock it in like this. And if there's a tiny bit of movement in the interviews, that's okay. That's totally understandable. Or If you want to add some movement to the interviews, that's always nice too. And I don't mind doing that because a little bit of active camera is not a bad thing. And this is something I always tell students, don't shoot your video like this, please. Shoot your video like this. Shoot it in landscape mode. You're creating news stories and not Instagram posts. You see a lot of news now where you see a lot of video running this way on TV, and that it's kind of breaking news. It's the moment, that's fine. But to really create a good story, you really need to shoot in landscape mode. I think that's pretty standard. But you'd be surprised at how many people forget. Clean your lens as often as you can. Just a little cloth, keep it clean. Sometimes little stuff will get on there because your phone's going in and out of your pocket or your bag or whatever. So again, that's very inexpensive too. Put your phone on airplane mode when you're recording, or you can even turn off the Wi-Fi, because what you want to do is avoid any interruptions of getting a phone call or a text message or an alert from CNN or whatever. And while it may not mess up your video, it'll certainly jar you a little bit if you're shooting an interview and something pops up. You want to avoid as many interruptions as possible. But remember to turn airplane mode off and turn your Wi-Fi back on when you start to edit. There's an exposure lock on your camera. I'm sure you've all used it at one time or another. Use it, but test it first. In some cases, it looks better without it on. So when you're setting up your interview or whatever shots you're doing, make sure that you check that first to see how you like it. I found that in many cases, I don't use the exposure lock because I like the way it looks without it. So again, that's something to tell your students, like a little checklist of things to look at before they start doing some video. Lighting is very important. So avoid really low lighting. You see that picture on the screen, there is actually a person in there. You want to avoid backlighting for sure, because that'll silhouette the person that you're interviewing. So just help your students be conscious of that, be conscious of where they are. You really don't want to have your students or even yourselves investing a lot of money for lighting and light kits, because really you don't need it for what you're trying to do. I rarely use a light. I might in certain rare occasions, but not very often, because I'm always in a hurry to get things done, to get to the next piece of work. So these cell phones do great with natural light. They really do, and especially the newer versions of the phones have really sensitive lenses. And so just avoid the backlighting. Be very careful where your interview subjects are. Line it up and make sure that everything works. And it's okay to move people around. It's okay to get people to stand where you want them to stand so you get the best possible light. So, just have your students be cognizant of the lighting, because it will make a very big difference. I have found that the zooms, when you do the adaptive lenses, you definitely cannot use the zooms. And so that's something to keep in mind too. But in general, I'm not real crazy with the zoom function, because I don't think it makes the picture look good. It makes the video look fuzzy. So you really want to get close to your interview subjects or whatever you're photographing, get as close as possible in order to get the best possible picture. That is a limitation of using the smartphone, and that is the inability to really zoom in well. And so again, that goes back to your planning of having to get close to your subjects and close to the objects that you're taking pictures of. But what about social distancing? Can you do all that and still be cautious? And the answer is yes. For your interviews, you'll notice that these microphones have a very long cable. I want to say at least 7 feet, something like that. So you hook up your camera and you're ready to go. Hook up your tripod where it's supposed to be. And then you can always put your microphone somewhere in between the two of you, so you don't have to get right on top of somebody to get them the microphone. So you can be conscious of that in your social distancing. Let's say you're photographing people on an assembly line or that type of thing. You can still get pretty decent pictures and still stay within a safe distance. Just make sure that your students are wearing masks. The interview subjects can be wearing masks until you interview them, and they can take the mask off. So you can still get close enough to your subjects to get pretty decent video and still respect the social distancing. I feel like I'm going a little too fast. So yeah, so wear a mask. There's nothing wrong with that. When I'm shooting videos now, I have my mask on all the time. You can keep your distance, whether it's people or objects or whatever. Objects, you don't have to worry about. People, you really have to be careful. Again, place your microphone in between somewhere. Put your microphone there, get it all set up, step back, and then tell your interviewee, go ahead, grab the mic, put it on. Should your interview subjects wear a mask? I don't think so. If you're, let me send this to voicemail. I don't think your interview subjects have to wear a mask when you're talking to them, because you're going to be far enough away, your students are going to be far enough away that you respect that social distancing. So you can use a tripod, or you can use the grip in order to get your interview. But be aware of your surroundings. If you're in an area where there are a lot of people, if you're in an area where there's a lot of noise, you want to be very conscious of that. So just keep all those things in mind. Like I said, there's a lot of pre-planning that goes along. And if your students do enough pre-planning ahead of time, then the post-production part of it will go a lot more easily. I learned a lot about how to shoot videos and how to edit videos by going online and watching free tutorials. And if you just did a simple Google search, you and your students would find all kinds of things on how to frame, how to shoot, how to edit, how to conduct an interview, how things should look. So I think maybe that's a good resource you could probably offer your students as well, is just giving them all of these different things that they can look at to learn from. And I learned, you can learn a lot from Google, whether it's from YouTube, whether it's how to change a tire to how to shoot video or whatever. So you could probably put together a list of resources for your students of, where they can go online to learn things like how do you do lighting? Where do you put a microphone? How do you shoot certain videos? There are a lot of options out there. So just encourage your students to look at that or put the resource together for them. So let's talk about editing. I am a novice at editing. I have tried to look at some really interesting programs for editing, but they're expensive. And I don't want to spend a lot of money. So the iPhone comes with iMovie, which is free. It's pretty limited in some things you can do, but it does a great job. The first handful of videos that I did for Doug were edited with iMovie. And so, like I say, there are some limitations with editing and what you can do, but it's super easy. And you don't have to be a very skilled editor to learn how to use it. Is everybody familiar with iMovie or something like that on the phone? It's all pretty simple. Have you all used it before? Yes? No? You can open your mics, I think, if you have anything you want to say.
I used it to do a video clip with my daughter for her social studies project. And so I did need a bit of mentoring from the Apple store subjects, but yeah, we got it done. It is, once you do it once, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it just takes a couple of passes to, thank you for that. It does take a couple of passes to figure out how to do it. And a lot of trial and error, mostly error, learning how to do things. The good news is that, you know, you're not going to break it, and you just keep trying it. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And really, once you learn iMovie, it's pretty simple, and you'll like it so much that you might not want to use anything else. But there are other options out there. Like I said, you could invest in other editing programs if you like. And there are some that'll cost you, like Final Cut and all those, that are hundreds of dollars. But it depends on what you want to do. And for your students, you really, you don't want them to bear any expense. You don't want to bear any expense. There's a lot of free stuff or inexpensive stuff out there that you can use. But, you know, I would suggest that you just try it yourselves. If you haven't done it already, shoot a real simple video around the house. You know, follow your dog around or whatever, and then play with iMovie and see how to use it. And then you'll be able to see how you can upload that to your photos to keep the finished product in there. And then from there, it's real easy to either put it on Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox if you wanted to transfer it. I wouldn't recommend trying to transfer videos via email unless it's a really tiny clip. But even then, you're not going to get really good quality that way. So use OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox or something to transfer your videos. And again, seriously, if I can figure out how to do this, I think anybody can. So in addition to iMovie, I stumbled upon a program called Lumafusion that you can see on the screen. That's what I've used. That's what I pretty much primarily use for editing now. The program, I want to say, cost me $30, and it's a little more elaborate than iMovie, but you can do a lot of things easier with it. For example, when you're putting a cover video or B-roll over an interview, it's easier to do effects and dissolves and things like that. If you want to do titles, you know, names on the screen, there are a lot of different options with Lumafusion. And again, it wasn't very expensive, so I wouldn't worry about that. But I have that app on my iPad, and I have it on my phone. But I do most exclusively, unless I'm in a real hurry, I do most of my editing on my iPad, and mainly because I like the larger screen. But you can just touch and grab and move things around. It's super simple, and it's quick and it's easy. And I think it's something you and your students could pick up pretty quickly. But if you don't want them investing in a like a Final Cut Pro type of editing program, iMovie, check out Lumafusion, or search for other free or paid apps online. There are all kinds that are available. Some are better than others, and have them look at the reviews and see what works and what doesn't. But there's all kinds of stuff out there that students could use. And for me, practice is really important in editing. When I first switched from iMovie to Lumafusion, I had no idea what I was doing because there were so many different functions. And so I just spent a weekend, not an entire weekend, but I spent a weekend just playing with it and figuring out different functions. And I've been using it for several months now, and I'm still discovering things that I didn't know before of effects and different things that I could do, things that are easier. So the more you practice, you know, the better you're going to get at it. And so, like I say, you just shoot little videos around the house, follow your dog around, follow your kids around. Kids can do something with their friends, and just practice and practice and practice. And it gets pretty simple. So First, I want to talk about being able to capture something quickly. The video I'm about to show is of a community school graduation. I work for the county office. We do court and community schools. So if you're not familiar with community schools, those are kids who were not successful in a conventional high school setting, and perhaps they had to make up some credits, or perhaps they were expelled, or maybe even sent to juvenile hall. So one day I went to a graduation, and it turned out to be a very nice setting. And I thought, well, this would make for a nice video. So I decided, I had in my car, I had my grip and I had my adaptive lenses, and I just put together this really quick video. So think in terms of, if your students want to capture student events or different things, they could very easily do this. You could very easily do this. But just think of the pictures that you want, where you want to be, and how you want it to look. Think of a variety of shots. Think of who you want involved in the story. There are no interviews in this story, but I don't think you need it. I think it's just telling the story of this graduation. Happy kids, happy families, happy administrators. It's just a celebration. And it's only a minute long. So that was easy to do. I mean, it took me less than an hour to photograph it. It took me, 20 minutes to do the editing and add the music, and I put it up on Facebook, and the kids loved it, the families loved it, they sent it all around, and it was a nice little addition to the story that we posted on our website about the graduation. So those are the types of things that can be done. Let me show you one more. I spoke earlier about when you're in your pre-planning stages, think about what you want this story to look like and who you want to tell the story. What sequence do you want this to come in? Who are the actors in your story? What are the visuals you're going to need? Based on what they say and based on what you see. And so again, for you and your students, plan ahead. At least think in your mind. You don't have to write it out, but think in your mind, what are the elements that I need to tell this story? What's it going to look like? What kind of pictures do I need? How do I want to explain it? So the video you're about to see is of a culinary arts program that we started inside the Sacramento County Juvenile Hall, where we work with students who are incarcerated. And so this tells their story. This tells the story of the instructor and the program.
Here at the Youth Detention Facility, the Sacramento County Office of Education has created a culinary arts program. More accurately, it's a pre-apprenticeship program. And with the pre-apprenticeship program, we teach the students the value of building relationships in addition to creating a solid culinary foundation. The cool thing about this is that it very much is the earn and learn model. So once they get out of here, they can start working with the program at the youth detention facility. But once they leave the youth detention facility, they're able to continue on with the program. And I, as their teacher, am able to continue on with them.
I love it. I love to eat food. So I definitely love working in the kitchen. It's a learning experience. It's something that not only I can use while I'm in here to gain teamwork skills, but also it's something I can use when I get out as far as help me towards a better career and a better future for myself.
We are thrilled that the Sacramento County Office of Education has pursued this wonderful opportunity for the young people inside our facility. It really opens up doors for young people. Programs like this, it builds confidence in their abilities to be successful, to turn away from some of the paths that have led them to this facility and instead embrace really, the opportunities that are out there.
It really helps the youth. Our main goal of the juvenile justice system is to rehabilitate, to help kids to make better choices and to have better futures. And I think that this activity is perfect.
It's like a good experience to just getting something new. That's why I wanted to be in this program. I got my food handler's card, and that helped me because on the outs, I can get a job, such as a restaurant.
It makes me feel good because it's I'm sitting there and I'm cooking and I'm knowing all the skills that I need to learn. I'm taking the test and I'm doing everything I have to do to be able to go out in the community and be able to get a job saying yeah.
I want the kids to know that there is a home for them in a career and in a job that will take them the way they are and appreciate the value and the contribution that they can make.
And that's it. A pretty simply told story. Those students that I interviewed and photographed were over 18. That's why they had the blue ribbon on their apron so that I could identify them. So we had their permission. But you see, we told the story of, we had the students in there, we had the instructor, we had the probation department, we had a judge, all talking about the value of the program. So before I went in to even do that story, I did a lot of mental preparing of what do I want in that story, who do I want to help tell the story, and then thinking in my mind, asking questions to kind of sequentially move that story along. And a lot of that just comes with practice and time and patience. But I think the more your students do this, the better they will get at storytelling. It's really not that hard. It's just an investment of time. So I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions because I figured there would be some. So fire away with questions. I'm happy to answer whatever you got. Was it that good?
What sorts of things are you doing now that, well, obviously it's summer for most sites, but as far as, changing up your tactics with COVID, I know, we went through that one slide that had those things, but, these ideas on trying to cover things that where people aren't coming together anymore. So what are you using to tackle those stories?
Good question. We've been using Zoom for some of our interviews. It's not the best quality, but I think at least for the time being, it's an acceptable quality. If at all costs, if you can do something in person, please do. We certainly understand if you can't. For me, shooting things, I'm trying to keep my distance, trying to be very careful. Right now we don't have any programs in place, and there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot to really do right now. So I'm looking to see what stories we can come up with for the new school year. We'll clearly do some stuff on distance learning and how we're handling it. Once COVID hit and everybody pretty much left the building except for a couple of us, our superintendent wanted to start doing weekly videos where he would just kind of inform the staff of what's going on. So it's kind of evolved into like a 4 or 5 minute weekly newscast. And so for visuals, I've been doing everything from asking program people to take screenshots or shoot cell phone pictures and send to me, or there have been times when I'll go out and record my own video just to help tell the stories. So yeah, Doug, it's going to be a challenge going forward right now to tell stories. But I think there are a lot of ways to do it. You just have to kind of be creative and think ahead of time.
Yeah, I just did a quick search for like Android apps too. So, I know there's gonna be a lot of kids that are going to have Androids. And it looks like there's quite a few. I didn't dig too deep. But is anyone on Android that, has a recommendation of a software app that could be helpful to others? No? Okay.
Everybody's iPhone users out there?
Okay.
WeVideo is an app for both.
Yeah.
WeVideo.
Does it work okay on the phone? I haven't tried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all the bells and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it does have quite a few features. But they do tell you once you open that video, in the computer program of WeVideo, you can no longer edit it on your phone, if that makes sense.
I thought
So-
WeVideo was just for transferring video. You can shoot with WeVideo?
It's for it's an editing platform, yeah, cloud-based
Editing.
editing platform.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
And who's used iMovie on their phone so far? Has anyone tried it out? So can you do titles?
Easy.
You know,
I think you can do titles. It's been a while since I've done it, but it's not super intuitive. I don't think. I'm just not used to the small screen either. So that's
yeah, and I think the dexterity and those issues.
Well, dexterity for sure, but just being able to see things for me, like trying to pick the shot that I want. You know, I'm at the point where I can see better without my glasses for something up close. But yeah, that's why I like the iPad, and I just AirDrop video onto my iPad and just create a file and work on a story from there. I find that to be a lot easier that way for me. And again, pre-planning, trying to make sure that you have all of your shots and know what you need. Here's a tip that I should have said earlier. One thing that's really important is when you know your kids are shooting their video, like their B-roll, make sure they're holding their shots for 10, 15 seconds, good steady shots. Because if you just shoot 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there, you don't have a whole lot to work with. And long shots are acceptable as long as they're good shots. So just make sure that they hold the video and hold the good shot, and it'll make the editing easier in the long run.
There's two editing programs I've got on my phone. I'm kind of a photography junkie with the iPhone. That's kind of my preferred over my DSLR. But Adobe Spark, I use all the Adobe Spark stuff, and the nice thing about that is it posts on a student's Adobe Spark page that I can check. That's a nice thing. And the other one, depending on if they have Adobe stuff in general, if they have Adobe stuff at home, Adobe Premiere Rush is another good one, especially for my kids that's what I use as Adobe Premiere. So
is there a cost for that?
I don't remember if there is for Rush. There's not for anything of this. None of the Spark videos cost a thing, and the video and the website's all free and all that. And it's also, you can use it online as well as on a mobile device. The Premiere Rush, I want to say it costs something, but the thing is I have the Adobe, I pay for the Adobe Suite. I have that subscription. And so that's part of it.
Yeah, it's part of the,
I know that.
it's part of the CC licensing.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was or not for sure, but yeah.
So there's a lot of free stuff out there. And so, encourage your students to look for that so that they don't have to put out any money. And really, for me, I think a lot of the stuff I have, students don't really need. But I would say if there were two pieces of equipment that were crucial, it would be the external microphone and the hand grip. And other than that, I think you can get away without a lot of that stuff. Just have to practice and have them work on their eye and their framing, and within time they'll get pretty good at it. Any other questions or?
Tim, I was wondering, that was good stuff. I wanted to know if you can make those example videos. Can you share those with us so we can show like, hey kids, this was done on an iPhone and you can do this too type thing?
What I'm going to do is I will put together a whole list of things that I will send to Doug. I'll send him some links to some videos that I've done with my iPhone. So he'll include that with some links to some of the equipment that I bought off of Amazon. How does that sound, Doug? Will you be able to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send it to you guys.
Oh, that'd be great. Okay, yeah, because when kids see like, oh, that was done, I could do that too. That's what it's helpful, and those are well done. So that's good.
Kids are pretty creative. I mean, they'll figure it out. They probably have better ideas than we do. So yeah, I'm happy to share any and all this stuff with Doug, and he can get it to you guys.
Do you guys have any ideas of story ideas for what students could be shooting as we come back? You guys, is that a big question on everyone's mind, or?
I thought of having them do teacher interviews through Zoom or whatever, and then like, how have you adapted? You know, what is the challenge been like for teaching? You could do each subject. Like, I mean, we have a big culinary program at my school. I don't know how they're going to do that, but you know, just like check in with teachers, like, how are you doing this? How are you doing that type thing? Kind of fun to see what the different departments, I guess, would be doing for how to adapt their curriculum and stuff.
That's a great idea to help build, bring the school community back together in an online environment. That's great.
Teachers will need to be willing, but but there's probably at least one in the department that'll be willing to help out and do something. So
yeah, I would think so. I mean, and they can go outside their bubble a little bit and see what's out there to record. Maybe what is it like for them to not be in school right now? What's it like for them to be a distance learner? They can do videos like that. They could probably do how-to videos for students on how to use Google Classroom. I mean, if you've got some kids that are pretty good at that, you might want to ask them to do that, because it might make more sense to the other students if they see another kid showing them how to do something. It might, they might be more apt to listen. So that's something you could do, or how to study certain topics, or how to do research. I mean, there's a bunch that they could do, but you're right, you are limited right now.
Even sharing your distance learning spaces, because everybody's distance learning space might be different. They might, have come up with something that you didn't. It might just something. I have little kids though, so
there's a whole lot you can do. There's a whole lot you do. But story ideas are going to be harder now because kids are at home. But there are things they can do, and they can still tell their stories, and that's really what you want. Even if it's just a monologue and they cover it with pictures of them doing things with their family or trying to adapt to this current situation, that would be kind of nice for them to do their own little personal profile of how things are. That might be something to consider.
Adobe Clip is free. That's another one. Then there's a program called Quick, Videorama Video Editor, Splice. Those are all free programs. I've not used any of them, but they're all free.
Yeah, and the thing with all those free ones, though, Tim, is that that there are going to be limitations. Like with iMovie, there's a ton of limitations, and with those are prior to. But it's good to get started.
Yeah,
I used Splice before. I think I liked it. I think it just took up a crap ton of space on your phone, but I think they all do. But yeah.
And it looks like Adobe Premiere Clip works on Android too, so that's a cross-platform product. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Josh, what was the other one you called? It was called Splice.
Yeah, I think Tim mentioned it. I have used Splice before. I think I liked it better than iMovie on my phone. Actually, I think I used it for a while there for. Okay. Kind of gotten away from doing it, but I do believe I liked it better than iMovie for, I can't tell you why though. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think I experimented with Splice for a little bit, but I just went back to iMovie because I thought it was a little bit easier for me. It's all personal choice, but there are like as Tim was finding just from that quick search, there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there.
A lot of them like Splice. That's seems to be a very popular one. And Videorama, but Splice definitely. There's a bunch of the websites have that as their top, or one of the top 2 or 3.
I've just been playing around with the iMovie mostly, and then just producing little short things for like to share on Flipgrid, things like that with my students.
Has it been pretty simple?
iMovie is really simple, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like 25 or 30 second at the most, so nothing substantial.
Well, that's where you get started.
Is Splice Android as well? Does anybody know?
It didn't come up on the list of when I just did a search for Android video editing apps. I didn't see Splice on that list at all. Filmora Go, Premiere Clip, Video Show, Power Director, KineMaster. So
So it looks like Premiere Clip is the only one that's cross-platform for everybody.
that's what it looks like. Yeah. Eric, have you had any experience with any of this?
You know, I don't do a whole lot of video on my phone. Generally, I'll use a camera. But you know, there's so much out there. Somebody earlier was saying WeVideo works really well on mobile devices. It's pared down from what you would generally see on a computer, but it works really well. And I had a lot of students during distance learning last fall who were working entirely on their mobile phone and producing good content and making good videos using WeVideo on their phone. I don't know if they were just avoiding computers because they didn't want to or because they couldn't, but yeah, I was seeing a lot of good content from WeVideo for mobile devices.
So what do you all teach? I'm just kind of curious as to what subjects you teach and how you are.
Actually, real quick, Laura, you had something you want to say real quick.
Well, I taught my students using their phones to upload the videos. Instead of using WeVideo on their phone, they would use their drive, and we would upload it to the drive, and then they could edit it on their WeVideo on their Chromebooks that the school provided. So that made it easier, and they got all the bells and whistles because we purchased WeVideo, so we have all the accounts that the students need. So that's how I did it. I did a video teaching them how to upload from their phone to their Google Drive, and then they knew how to get it from their drive to their WeVideo.
Would you mind sharing that video with me or with us?
Yes, I will do
just
that.
As as another workflow possibility. That'd be great.
Because I find it hard to work on my phone. I think a lot of kids do. I know maybe kids don't. I just me. But I find it easier to be on a computer.
Yeah, I like the larger screen.
Me too, but it's funny because I ask my kids, what if they had to only have one, would they pick a phone or a computer? And all of them say phone. I rarely have, maybe one or two. If they're serious at editing, really serious, they'll pick the computer. But other than that, it's all phone. They use it for everything. They take pictures of notes for homework on it and study with it. So they're good with the small screen. My eyes are too old.
Mine too. And I've seen students type essays on their phone with their two thumbs in Google Docs. And I don't know how they do it. I don't even know what grade they're getting for it, but anyway.
I have elementary, and my elementary kids really liked using the phone a lot. So, and their accounts for WeVideo works on their phone. So the account that I have, because I have the same thing that you do, and they just have to make sure that they go and they log in with their 997 at eageusd.email thing, and then they have the same account. The only thing is a little less bells and whistles, and like I said, once you open that video in the computer, you can no longer edit it on your phone.
That's interesting.
Karen, what have you found with your stuff and the kids and phones?
We didn't really use phones too much. We did most of our stuff like they did their how-to videos using their Chromebook. So they were I was impressed. They were very creative. But I'm sure with, the option of possibly getting those kits, that will open up those windows to things that we can do differently. I just wanted to say I really kind of liked that tip about wearing the blue ribbon if the kids were over 18. Oh. And wow, if we ever actually get to go videotape anyone ever again, that's a really cool thing. Do you guys usually do that? Is that a standard thing?
Yeah, whenever we have an event inside the juvenile hall, we have to get the kids' permission and the court's permission, but they have to be over 18 in order to be photographed. So for that event, we had, I think the Sacramento Bee and the News and Review there also. So we told them you can only photograph the kids with the blue. So it just really helped.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
I wish I would have thought of it.
Well, you shared it. You shared it. That's what's important.
Yeah, but our chef thought of that so that we could get those kids in there.
Great.
And then Jennifer, what about you? What are you finding with your students? Which tactic do you think you're going to take?
Last spring, most of my kids did use their cell phones, but they all shot it in portrait. So that's a good tip, that they need to shoot it in landscape. And I got a lot of nature shots without any people in them. So that's something else that we'll have to really focus on. And they didn't even talk about it. They just like took a walk and took a video. So we'll need some more guidance on those.
And then Nick, how about you? What's going on with all your kids?
Well, last year, We Video actually did a free thing and I got them to give all the kids at school a seat to do a project for, a week in the life of a distance learner. Unfortunately, not everybody took advantage of doing it, but I got some really interesting projects from, first and second graders all the way up to sixth graders. What they did, their chores and so on and so forth. And I mean, the littler kids, it was, one little girl sent me a video of her taking care of her chickens. Day in the life of a distance learner, she went out, she fed the chickens, she collected eggs, she did all this stuff. But most of the kids shot it on their phones and then edited in We Video, and they turned out really good.
That's awesome.
That's really good. And then Isabel, what you've got second graders, I believe, right?
I've had fourth graders. So
fourth grades. Okay.
Yeah, we did social studies videotaping on a landmark, and so they had to do research on the landmark and then videotape, do several takes on it, the different kinds of information about it, and then compile it into a video, 5-minute video, and then they did their own clipping. So I did my daughters as an example, and so it was a learning experience for the parents and the students as well.
And probably for you too.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. My former student, 5th grade student, works at AT&T, where the iPhone, the app, the iPhone store. And so he was my teacher for this part of the project. He was able to teach me how to use the iPhone features and the iMovie features. So yeah. I can see how it could be helpful to students in the classroom. So I definitely am looking forward to using the WeMovie.
Well, I think you could probably incorporate video storytelling in just about any subject.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. And so it's good that you're thinking of these ideas now of how to do these things. And it sounds like a lot of your students have already done some pretty good stuff. Doug, I wouldn't mind seeing some of those videos of the kids doing a day in the life of a distance learner. That would be kind of cute to see what they put together.
Yeah, that was great. We were running a share your story that we do that on the channels, and so we had a lot of really cool. They're mostly like news segments, but we had other stories. And this one girl, as part of her newscast, she's like, I'm going to show you my street. And so she's literally like walking down her street, showing her world, like, and the trees and the, whatever. It was really cool. So, yeah, they're getting more creative and exploring their world and showing those things.
Well,
so
they're getting better at it too, I think. I mean, they've grown up with this. They've grown up with phones with cameras on them. I mean, I certainly didn't. So I think they're a little bit quicker to adapt to it and learn how to use the technology.
One of my students, she's amazing. Last year was our first year as a media group. And we submitted 5 videos to SEVA. She came up with, I think, 3 of the ideas for the videos. And 3 of the videos that we did made it to the top 12 or the final 12. And her day in the life was just really awesome, because she actually sat down and said, you know, this is how I feel today, you know, and this is what I miss, and I'm feeling anxious about, you know, not being able to go back to school. And it was really, really good. I mean, for just throwing it out there, she did a fantastic job. You know, had we been in school, we could have, you know, tweaked it and you know, been able to say, okay, what about this? What about that? And, but, you know, it was really good. Unfortunately, you know, she was in the 6th grade last year, so now she's going to middle school, and I don't have her anymore. But she's actually, both she and her father have already contacted me and said, you know, when are you going to school? Can I come and meet you at the lab? I want to do some work. I want to be there. I want work to do. So she's just a really amazing kid when it comes to how she's gotten into it and done these things with it, and how well she's done.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Nick. And one of the things that came up in the session I was just in, and Tim, I think you're the one in there, was Kirsten Holmes from ABC 10. One of the things that she was talking about was feeling, like asking people, like, or when they communicate or they're asked about, how does this make you feel as part of their story? And that seems to really be a, you know, a good angle to take to get some, you know, good responses from people, and make the story come alive, maybe for other people that may touch them in some other way. So that's really interesting, Nick. It's cool. So.
And I think the younger the kids are, when you work with them on their storytelling, the better they are as they get older and older. And it's not like you're intending every one of these kids to be a multimedia journalist. That's not the point. The point is, you know, getting their thoughts together, getting organized, planning, putting together a story. You know, the county office helps coordinate the Sac County Breeze, which is a county-wide high school newspaper, where we have different, you know, English and journalism students from all around the county who contribute stories. And, you know, we talk to them all the time. Once a year, we have a awards ceremony, except for last year. And so we talk to all these kids, and out of 20 kids, maybe 2 of them are considering journalism, but the rest of them will say, you know, what they learned from taking journalism and from learning how to write and how to construct a good story will help them in history, in the law, or whatever it is that they're planning to study. So I think that's what's valuable about what you all are doing in working with your kids, is you're teaching them to be the critical thinker and the storyteller, and how they can best express themselves. And that's really valuable no matter what those kids do.